The ruthless Orion Empire had finally crossed the line, murdering Vulcan hatchlings mercilessly, while their elders watched in horror, unable to stop the sadistic slaughter. But the Vulcan never imagined that in their moment of greatest peril, their unlikely rescuers would be the monstrous humans, a species with an unmatched reputation for brutality and violence. Javin lay despondent in his bunk on the cramped Vulcan starship, one arm draped over his weary eye stalks. His carapace ached with exhaustion. The Vulcan fleet had been routed at Velos Prime, their advanced but diminutive ships no match for the larger, faster, more heavily armed Orion warships. They'd been forced to retreat, leaving the planet's inhabitants to die horribly. "I can't believe it, we just abandoned them," Javin muttered bitterly. "You know what, I think the humans were right." His wingmate Kronak coughed in shock. The humans? Those bloodthirsty savages? What could those crazy primates possibly be right about at a time like this? The Vulcan were desperate. If the humans did not join their fight, and soon, the merciless Orion would inevitably hunt down and exterminate every last Vulcan in the galaxy. But convincing the humans to help would not be easy. The Vulcan has always looked down on mankind's violent ways, until now. Javin's mind drifted back to the history lessons he had learned as a hatchling centuries ago. He recalled the fateful day when humanity made first contact with the wider galaxy. The humans were ecstatic, their leaders proclaiming that this momentous event would usher in a new era of prosperity and enlightenment for their species. But the major galactic powers had other plans. The Dolans, known for their greed, saw Earth as a ripe target for plunder. They sent fleets of massive freighters to the human homeworld, stripping away millions of tons of precious metals and rare minerals without so much as a single credit in payment. Human protests fell on deaf ears. The Dolans scoffed at the idea that such a primitive species could stop them. The Sleen Empire, always in need of cheap labor, took a different approach. They offered 100,000 humans the opportunity to immigrate to Sleen worlds, promising high-paying jobs and a better life among the stars. Those unfortunate souls found themselves toiling away in Sleen factories and mines, treated as little more than slaves. But perhaps the greatest betrayal came from the Jandis Collective. Under the guise of medical aid, Jandis scientists convinced thousands of humans to participate in routine vaccinations. In reality, these unwitting test subjects were being injected with experimental bioweapons, designed to cause unimaginable suffering. When the truth of these atrocities came to light, the humans were incensed. In a fit of rage, they severed all ties with the galactic community, retreating into isolation. The galaxy's response was cruel laughter. The foolish humans had shown their true colors, they said. What else could one expect from such a barbaric, uncivilized race? For 2 long years, the humans endured this ceaseless mockery. Javin remembered the day when the humans finally broke their silence. In a single, chilling message broadcast across the galaxy, they spoke. "We welcomed you with open arms. Some of you laughed at us, and that is fine. But if you betrayed us, this is your only warning. Run." The galaxy's laughter turned to scorn. What could the primitive humans possibly do against the might of the great empires? But as Javin would soon learn, the humans had not been idle during their isolation. They had been studying the technology of those who wronged them, reverse engineering and improving upon it. The first sign of humanity's vengeance came in the form of a series of devastating attacks on the Sleen Empire. Human warships, armed with advanced weaponry, the likes of which the galaxy had never seen, tore through Sleen defenses like tissue paper. The once mighty empire crumbled in a matter of days. Next came the Jandis Collective. The bioweapons they had tested on human subjects were turned against them, unleashed upon Jandis worlds with horrifying efficiency. Billions died in agony as the very plagues they had created ravaged their bodies. Finally, the humans set their sights on the Dolans. In a single brutal assault, they reduced the Dolan homeworld to a smoldering ruin, avenging the theft of their resources 100-fold. With their revenge complete, the humans issued a final warning to the rest of the galaxy. Stay away from our space or face annihilation. Any ship that approached human territory was destroyed without mercy, regardless of its intent. For centuries thereafter, the galaxy's races seethed with anger at the humans' actions. They called them savages, brutes, uncivilized monsters who had no place among the stars. But beneath their rage lay a deep, unspoken fear. The humans had proven themselves capable of a level of brutality that even the most warlike species could scarcely imagine, and so the galaxy gave humanity a wide berth, praying that they would never again provoke the wrath of these terrifying beings. Javin's eye stalks drooped as the weight of the galaxy's indifference pressed down on him. The parallels between the Balkans' plight and the humans' past torment were impossible to ignore. Just as the galaxy had once mocked and exploited humanity, now they sat idly by while the Orion slaughtered the Balkan without mercy. Everyone else in this galaxy sits there and watches us die slowly at the hands of the Orion, Javin mused aloud, his voice tinged with bitterness. They do nothing. We would all be better off if we were just left alone. He paused, a flicker of realization crossing his face. We would be better off if we were like the humans. The thought hung in the air, a desperate spark of hope in the darkness. If the humans could rise from the ashes of betrayal and become a force to be reckoned with, perhaps the Balkan could do the same. It was a wild, reckless idea, but what other choice did they have? The next day, Javin found himself in the cockpit of his one-man Balkan ship, his carapace trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. He knew the risks of venturing into human space. No one had dared to do so for centuries. But the alternative, watching his people be slowly crushed under the Orion's boot, was unthinkable. Weeks passed, as Javin journeyed deeper into uncharted territory, his food supplies dwindling with each passing day. Just as he began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake, his ship suddenly went dead, the engines cutting out without warning. Javin's eye stalk swiveled in panic as he realized he was drifting, powerless, on the edge of where human space was believed to be. "This must be their doing," he muttered, his voice tight with tension. "They've disabled my ship." With trembling appendages, Javin activated his ship's communicator and began broadcasting a desperate plea for aid. "Please, if anyone can hear me, my people are being slaughtered by the Orion," he implored, his voice cracking with emotion. "The rest of the galaxy does nothing as we die. We need help. We need the humans." Silence was his only reply, the void of space swallowing his words without a trace. As the minutes ticked by with no response, Javin's desperation turned to anger. How could the humans sit by and do nothing, just as the galaxy had once done to them? Were they truly so cruel, so cowardly, that they would let an entire species be wiped out without lifting a finger? "You're no better than the rest of them," Javin shouted into the communicator, his voice raw with fury. "You talk of vengeance and justice, but when others need your help, you hide like cowards." In a final act of defiance, Javin slammed his fist down on the ship's control panel, destroying the FTL drive and communication systems in a shower of sparks. If the humans wouldn't help, then he would die out here, alone and forgotten, a martyr to their indifference. As the smoke cleared and the weight of his actions settled upon him, Javin slumped back in his seat, his eye stalks fixed on the endless expanse of stars beyond his view screen. He had gambled everything on the slim hope that the humans might be different, that they might understand the Balkans' plight and offer aid. But now, stranded and alone, he realized the bitter truth. In this cold, uncaring galaxy, there was no one to rely on but themselves. Days turned into weeks as Javin drifted aimlessly through the void, his ship's life support systems slowly failing. The air grew thin and stale, the recyclers struggling to keep up with his body's demands. His eye stalks drooped with exhaustion, his carapace dull and lifeless. He had gambled everything on the slim hope that the humans might help, and now it seemed that hope had been in vain. Just as Javin was about to succumb to despair, a massive shape loomed out of the darkness, dwarfing his tiny vessel. It was a human warship, its hull bristling with weapons and armor. Javin's eye stalks widened in shock as a deep, commanding voice crackled over the ship's external speakers. "This is Admiral Grayson of the United Earth Alliance. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Javin scrambled to activate his ship's communicator, his appendages shaking with a mixture of fear and relief. "I am Javin of the Balkan," he replied, his voice hoarse from weeks of disuse. "I come seeking aid for my people. We are being slaughtered by the Orion, and the rest of the galaxy does nothing to help us." There was a long pause, and for a moment Javin feared that the humans would simply destroy him and be done with it. But then Admiral Grayson's voice returned, tinged with something that sounded almost like sympathy. "We have been monitoring the Orion's aggression with growing concern," he said. "Tell me more about their atrocities." Javin took a deep breath, his eye stalks fixed on the imposing human ship. With nothing left to lose, he poured out his heart, describing the Orion's merciless slaughter of Balkan hatchlings, the indifference of the galactic community, and the desperation that had driven him to seek out the humans. To Javin's surprise, Admiral Grayson listened intently, his voice growing more somber with each passing moment. "We have seen the footage of the Orion's crimes," he said at last, "and we have heard the silence of the galaxy in response. It is a silence we know all too well." Javin's eye stalks twitched in confusion. "What do you mean?" "The galaxy once stood by and did nothing while we suffered," Admiral Grayson replied, his voice heavy with the weight of history. "They mocked us, exploited us, and betrayed us. We vowed never to let such injustice happen again, to anyone." There was another long pause, and Javin could hear the murmur of voices in the background, as if the Admiral was consulting with his superiors. Finally, Admiral Grayson spoke again, his voice filled with a new resolve. "The United Earth Alliance has decided to intervene on behalf of the Balkan," he declared. "We will provide humanitarian aid to your refugees and escort you back to Balkan space." Javin's eye stalks quivered with shock and gratitude. He had never expected the humans to actually help, not after centuries of isolation and hostility. "Thank you," he managed to choke out, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." "Do not thank us yet," Admiral Grayson replied, his voice grim. "The road ahead will be long and difficult. The Orion will not take kindly to our interference, and the other galactic powers may see this as an opportunity to settle old scores." Javin nodded, his carapace straightening with newfound determination. "We are ready to face whatever comes," he said. "With the humans by our side, we have a chance to save our people." As the human warship pulled alongside Javin's tiny vessel, he felt a surge of hope rising within him. The humans were not the monsters the galaxy had made them out to be. They were warriors, yes, but warriors with a sense of justice and compassion. And now, against all odds, they had chosen to stand with the Balkan in their darkest hour. The airlock hissed open, and Javin stepped forward to meet his new allies, his eye stalks held high with pride and gratitude. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the Balkan would not face it alone. The galaxy erupted in a frenzy of activity as news of the humans' unexpected intervention spread faster than a supernova. Journalists scrambled to break the story first, their headlines screaming across the airwaves. "Humans return to galactic stage. Earth fleet defends Balkan from Orion. Cruel humans show compassion." On 1,000 worlds, trillions of aliens huddled around their view screens, watching the drama unfold with a mixture of disbelief and fear. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, representatives from the various species argued and debated, their voices rising in a cacophony of confusion. "This must be some kind of trick," sneered the Dolan ambassador, his bulbous eyes narrowed in suspicion. "The humans are savages, incapable of empathy or kindness. They must have some ulterior motive." "Perhaps they seek to conquer the Balkan themselves," suggested the Sleen delegate, her forked tongue flicking nervously. "They did the same to us centuries ago, remember?" But others were not so sure. The Jandis representative, his carapace still bearing the scars of the human bioweapon attack, spoke up hesitantly. "We thought we knew the humans once," he said, his voice trembling. We were wrong then. Could we be wrong again? As the debate raged on, the human fleet arrived in Balkan space like a thunderbolt from the heavens. Admiral Grayson stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Retribution, his steely gaze fixed on the viewscreen. "Sensors, report," he barked. "Multiple Orion vessels detected, Admiral," replied the sensor officer, her fingers flying over the console. "They're moving to intercept us." Grayson nodded grimly. "All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage." The Orion ships, sleek and predatory, closed in on the human fleet like a pack of hungry wolves, but they were no match for the humans' advanced technology. The UES Retribution's main cannon roared to life, spitting a beam of pure energy that sliced through the Orion flagship like a hot knife through butter. The other human ships followed suit, their weapons tearing through the Orion formation with ruthless efficiency. On the planet below, Balkan refugees huddled in makeshift camps, their eye stalks wide with fear and desperation. Suddenly, the sky above them filled with the roar of human dropships, their hulls emblazoned with the United Earth Alliance emblem. The ships touched down in a cloud of dust, their ramps lowering to reveal human soldiers in full battle armor. But these were not the cruel conquerors the Balkan had been led to expect. Instead, the humans came bearing medical supplies and food, their hands extended in compassion and aid. Balkan hatchlings, their carapaces still soft and vulnerable, clung to the human medics as they treated their wounds and soothed their fears. Javin watched in amazement as the human soldiers worked tirelessly to help his people. He had gambled everything on the humans' mercy, and now it seemed that gamble had paid off. As the Balkan leadership gathered to meet with Admiral Grayson, Javin found himself at the center of attention. "You brought them here," said one of the elders, his eye stalks quivering with emotion. "You saved us all." Javin shook his head. "It was the humans who saved us," he said. "I merely showed them the way." As the days passed, the human fleet continued to drive the Orion back, establishing a protective perimeter around Balkan space. Javin worked tirelessly as a liaison between the humans and his own people, helping to coordinate relief efforts and plan for the future. But the Orion would not give up so easily. As they regrouped for a counterattack, Admiral Grayson knew that the final battle was fast approaching. He summoned Javin to his flagship, his face grim. "We've got a fight on our hands," he said. "The Orion are coming back and they're bringing everything they've got." Javin nodded, his carapace straightening with determination. "My people are ready to fight alongside you," he said. "We will not let the Orion take our home again." As the Orion fleet approached, the human and Balkan ships moved to intercept them. Javin led a squadron of Balkan fighters, their small craft darting and weaving among the larger human vessels. The battle was fierce and bloody, with losses on both sides. But in the end, the superior technology and skill of the human-Balkan alliance proved too much for the Orion. The Orion flagship exploded in a ball of fire, its debris raining down upon the battlefield. The remaining Orion ships scattered and fled, their crews desperate to escape the wrath of the humans. In the aftermath of the battle, the Balkan cheered and wept with joy, their freedom finally won. But even as they celebrated, the galactic community watched in stunned silence. The humans, once dismissed as cruel and savage, had shown a level of compassion and bravery that few had thought possible. Grudgingly, the other species were forced to reassess their view of humanity. For their part, the humans made it clear that they had no interest in joining the galactic community. They had intervened to save the Balkan, but they would not be drawn into the petty squabbles and power plays of the other species. Instead, they would stand watch from afar, ready to defend the innocent and oppose tyranny wherever they found it. As Javin watched the human fleet depart, he felt a sense of hope that he had never known before. The galaxy was still a dark and dangerous place, but now he knew that there was light in the darkness. The humans had shown him that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was always a chance for redemption and renewal. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.